Afenifere chieftain, Chief Ayo Adebanjo, is refuting claims that he put pressure on former Lagos State Governor Bola Tinubu to build the house he, Adebanjo, is living in Lekki, Lagos. This is the latest rebuttal to several issues contained in Bisi Akande's book, My Participations.
For Chief Bisi Akande, the adage, those living in glass houses should not throw stones, holds true. In his memoir, My Participations, Akande did not only throw stones from reactions so far to the book, he failed to heed another wise counsel, let the sleeping dogs lie. With refuters from President Buhari's aides and now from Chief Adebanjo, some analysts say if some of the guests who graced the book presentation had read the book, perhaps many would have thought twice about attending. Several of the claims he made in the book have been debunked. For instance, President Buhari's aides have described as false claim that the president had promised former Lagos State Governor Bola Tinubu the vice presidential ticket. His claim that former President Olusegun Obasanjo stopped his re-election as governor of Osun State has also been disputed. In the book, Chief Bisi Akande also claimed that Afenifere chieftain Ayo Adebanjo put pressure on former Lagos State Governor Bola Tinubu to build the house he is living for him. Adebanjo in a statement refuted the claim. He explained that he obtained a bank facility to complete the house and had to sell another property to defray the loan. Adebanjo did not stop there. He is challenging Akande to disclose how he financed his properties in Osogbo, Ibadan, Lagos and abroad. In addition, he wants Bola Tinubu to disclose the source of his wealth with which he bankrolled the elections of the APC in the southwest and that of President Buhari, as well as his various properties in Lagos.
It is the practice of people who are sycophants. As I said, he was just trying to be relevant. And I said in my statement, not only that a neophyte, is a beneficiary of a struggle that he did not participate in. He joined the action group Afenifere Mystery. He was brought in by late Bola Tinubu, Bola Ige. When Bola Ige had a dispute between Afolabi and himself over the question of second term in 1983, because the two of them met in Obasanjo's house to discuss UPN affairs. That was a long story which I always like to avoid because of the dirtiest fact about it that many people don't know about Bola Ige that will be revealed, which I would like to raise another thing. But if anybody put the word into my tongue into my mouth, I will bite it. But because he has no reputation, he has no antecedent, he thought he'd be fighting Bola Ige's battle in his absence by claiming to be a champion of Bola Ige's activities. So he just jumped into the game. He didn't know the background. As for his being an apron string of Tinubu, Tinubu started to assume the leadership of the place. In the Yorubas have been saying that in the absence of the cat, every rat has freedom.
Dr. Bati, I believe this was the interview he granted Arise News last night. He was on a Newsnight program. And, you know, it's a lot to unpack here. He has accused Bola Tinubu and he's called him a pathological liar. Anyway,
I mean, I'm sure Chief Ayo Adebanjo can speak for himself, and he has already defended himself. You recall on this program, when the book by Chief Bisi Akande was publicly presented, My Participations, as it is titled, I made a point that Chief Bisi Akande should expect that there will be reactions to some of the claims in the book, and we've had so many reactions, principally the reaction which we just watched from Baba Adebanjo, Chief Ayo Adebanjo, and also from former governor of Osun State and the successor in office as governor of Osun State of Chief Bisi Akande, and that General Olagunsoye Oyinlola. Now, I think it's good for the reading public It's just unfortunate that, you know, the so-called proverbial reading public in Nigeria doesn't quite read. We have many of these public presentations, but, you know, the books don't usually go around. Our reading culture has gone down. Otherwise, I will have jumped to the conclusion that this is good benefit for Nigerian readers, for the Nigerian voter, because when people have occupied important positions in government, when they write, when they tell their stories, when they argue, as they're doing, you know, they create a debate around some key issues that may be of interest to voters. It's also a process of accounting, you know, for their stewardship while they were in office. So on the surface of it, it's very good. But I hope that more people will read the books. And I also expect that perhaps more reactions will come. Now, if anyone was behind that book, either as editor or, you know, or even the author himself, he probably will be happy that the book has generated some interest. Of what value? It's a book that nobody read, you know, and nobody reacts to. So those are the main issues. But as for the details, well, I found Chief Ayo Adebanjo's, you know, response quite robust. Apart from refuting some of the claims in the book, he's also making fresh allegations of his own. He's even asking the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to investigate the author of the book in terms of how he, in particular, came about his properties. And he also called out the leader of the All Progressives Congress, former governor of Lagos State, Senator Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, saying that, look, he was present there, and why did he not refute the claims, knowing that he was not the one that built his house in Lekki for him. And he provided, you know, accounting, self-accounting, to tell the public how he came about his property in Lekki. But more importantly, Papa Ayo Adebanjo's reputation rests heavily on his integrity, on his, you know, much acclaimed incorruptibility. He's been in politics since he was a very young man, and, you know, he had never sought political office or ran for election, but he has been very instrumental, you know, in supporting political causes and defending causes in the public space. So, I mean, he has a stake at 90 plus for that reputation not to be tarnished. And I like the fact that he made reference to his own biography, his autobiography, saying it as it is, which is out there in the market. I had the privilege of being the reviewer of the book when it was presented in his hometown a few days ago. So I hope that people will read all of these accounts. I keep stressing this point about reading, and people will not rely on gossip or sketchy newspaper reports. As for former Governor Lagunsoye Oyinlola, yes, his response to Chief Bisi Akande is that, well, you know, he tried to give an account of what happened with the governor's office complex when he took over from Akande in 2003. But what I find interesting in his own case is that he says, well, he has written his own biography too, and that autobiography will be on the shelves, you know, early 2022. So I think the production of these memoirs, you know, they're useful to the extent that this is not the usual hagiography that you find when governors are in office. They're busy praising themselves. But a memoir gives you an opportunity to tell your story in a more robust manner. And I hope that students of politics, sociology, and students of power, you know, will take a look at these books, you know, to be able to construct, you know, within a period, the dynamics of power and politics in Nigeria and the relevant connections with society and the role of individuals in the making and the unmaking, with emphasis on the unmaking of Nigeria.
Right. Rufai, you have read the book?
Yes. I mean, I've read the book, picked it up there ago, knocked it out in a couple of hours, 500 pages. One thing is certain, Oji, this is not the last of the reactions you would see. We'll see more reactions. For instance, I'm still waiting for the reaction of the likes of Iyola Mishore in this book, because a lot was said about Iyola Mishore reading that book. And really, like Dr. Bati did say, I'll enjoy people to pick up the book and read. not just rely on newspaper sketches and all of that, because I've seen a lot of commentary. And one thread I see across all the commentary is that they have not read the book. Everybody that is writing about the book has obviously not picked up the book, read it for word, the over 559 pages. Get it, read. There was a lot said, too, against the former Oni. So I'm sure his estate will probably like to react to all of those things. So this is just the beginning of many reactions to come. We will definitely see it. But the fireworks yesterday and the wheel in the spider being thrown yesterday by Chief Ayo Adebanjo just lets you know that there are many sides to it. Part of this robust conversation. And most of these even allegations date back to, the 80s. What the debacle that happened, between Bola Ige and his deputy, Chief Esema Folabi, leading up to Bisi Akande being made SSG, and some other things that happened around that time, leading up to the military taking over. So it goes way back, leading up even to the formation of the Alliance for Democracy. And these are the fireworks we will definitely see. I think what has just been focused on in this book is just one chapter, where he talked about, the formation of the merger that became the APC, the move for presidency and the likes, the emergence of Yemi Osinbajo. That's just about one chapter of it. So more will come because many more allegations are made. And it goes back to the conversation about societal reading. Because, you see, we need to start having a society that really dwells on institutional memory. And take it or leave it, albeit the account may be different from other dramatists personnel in this, they've got some level of institutional memory. Take, for instance, Bisi Akande got institutional memory that dates back even to the colonial days in Nigeria, that dates back to the Constituent Assembly in the 70s that made the 79 Constitution, that is reviewed to be the 1999 Constitution. That's the trust on which we still build our democracy on today. So he's got that memory, and a lot of that was shared in the book. So we will watch all this reaction in the coming weeks. We would see more people to react. Oyinlola has stated his own part, refuted a couple of claims and all of that. He was a little bit more charitable. Chief Ayo Adebanjo went straight to the jugular. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been brought into this. Asiwaju Bisi Akande has to make more rebuttals and reactions based on all of this that have been said. All of this is in line with the politicking that has started for 2023 elections. I keep saying, let the games begin. Because the book launch in itself was a precursor to the elections.
That's your thing.
Well, you're saying that Chief Bisi Akande should react to the reactions. I don't think so. That's not the standard practice. Because as a writer, once you have written your copy, you've done your book, if there are reactions, then allow the reaction. No, except you want to write another book.
No, so the reaction I was talking about is, take for instance, the challenge Chief Ayo Adebanjo threw. That said Chief Bisi Akande should come out and tell the world how he built his house in Ila and some other parts of Lagos. He should tell the world. I mean, he has to react to that.
And now his house in
yes, he did
Orogunla.
actually.
It's bigger than his own.
Bigger than his own. He has to react to that.
Well, he did charge. He did charge.
Many reactions.
But one suggestion that I've seen out there that I find curious is the suggestion that, in fact, he should withdraw the book because the book is full of lies. No, that again,
it's already in public domain.
That again is not standard practice. Whoever disagrees with the book should either write their own or set the record straight. And as I said, we'll be all better informed for it, and we get a better idea about the character of politicians.
Well, I look forward to all the reactions. That's what's going to be making headlines next week, I believe. Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus Odiri and Michael Wilson give us updates on Africa global business activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you all. Right, so the central banks have been fighting back, basically. We saw the Bank of England hike interest rates for the first time in 3 years. The European Central Bank is cutting its pandemic support scheme, and the Bank of Japan has just said it's winding down its emergency pandemic plans, and so, but it's keeping monetary policy loose. As far as Asia Pacific is concerned, then mostly lower this morning. Nikkei down about 1%, Topics down 0.7%, Shanghai mainland stocks down about 0.5%, and on Hong Kong listed shares of Chinese tech companies sold off sharply. Alibaba shares off, JD down, Meituan down as well, and Tencent. The United States said that it's going to blacklist 34 China entities. Biden administration trade restrictions on more than 30 of them, human rights violations, and the alleged development of what they describe as brain control weaponry. The move comes after the White House announced a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Winter Olympic Games in Beijing. Beijing, of course, denies it's been committing human rights abuses against the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. So let us recap what happened in the United States. Stock futures, a bit of a tech sell-off, really, as far as the markets in the United States are concerned. A rally was erased. It looks like the Fed's going to be aggressive. We knew that, but also it's looking to maybe raise rates in 2022. Again, we knew that. But it takes a while, I think, for these kind of things to sink into the market. And we've seen a bit of a rotation from high-growth tech stocks to consumer staples, which is the way which stocks sort of go when they're feeling a little more defensive. Joe Biden has signed the debt ceiling increases, preventing the first ever US default. It's a normal pantomime, but he signed the bill a day after the Treasury's estimated date when it would run out of tools to pay the country's bill. So all well for the moment. Turkey, what on earth is going on there? More misery for the lira. CBRT continues to pile problems as far as the lira is concerned in Turkey. It seems to be on a different planet than the rest of us. And Erdogan is actually giving another 1% rate cut today. Inflation at 21.31%. Lira therefore going down another 5%, even though Erdogan has raised the country's minimum wage. So the EU, this was the first. This was the first one I'll touch as far as central bank meetings are concerned. EU announces an end to the PEPP in March. ECB a similar challenge basically to everybody else, seeing rising inflation, but no raise in interest rates. It's going to close its pandemic emergency plan at the end of March. And flexibility, just as OPEC Plus really has proved, hasn't it? That's what you need to be. As far as the UK is concerned, the Chancellor Rishi Sunak's returning from a US trip early to talk about COVID concerns. Nobody wants to be missing in action, clearly, as a politician, and he's come back from what was a business trip in California. Questions have been raised about his absence so far. Well, he's coming back, and he's going to have to face, particularly companies from the hospitality sector, are calling for financial report from the government. Retail sales rose in November, but that's before the Omicron thing actually started to bite. And the most recent consumer confidence measures are not really very good for the UK economy. So we saw the central bank raise interest rates for the first time in 3 years, increased to 0.25%. Clearly not worrying too much about what the fallout from Omicron is actually going to be. And as far as Brexit is concerned, here is the first big trade deal as far as Brexit, a post-Brexit, nothing to do with the rollover, what happened before Brexit. This is a new deal. This is Australia, gives Britain a foothold in that all-important Trans-Pacific economic partnership and a gateway to that fast-growing region, and maybe trying to counter what China is doing with its trade in that particular area. Oil is edging slightly higher. Central banks choose long-term stability really over short-term gain. I think that's what we got. Brent at 74.80, WTI at 71.60 so far this morning. Question: can gold continue to rally? Well, the dollar has pulled back after recent highs. Gold's up about 1%. What some people are seeing a bit of over-delivery as far as the Bank of England is concerned, and the ECB saying it's going to end, as I told you, the PEP plan. It may be that currencies, the dollar's under a bit of pressure, and that makes gold all the more attractive. And finally, Bitcoin enthusiasts, they were hoping for like a six-figure end to the year. They're not going to get it. It's now seeing strong support at around $47,000, and bulls are clearly digging their heels in, but they're not going to see the sort of stellar year or stellar end to the year it looks like that they had predicted. That is your global view after a very, very busy week of central bank activity.
Very busy week, Michael. So let me ask that question again, Michael. Did the Bank of England yield to IMF in the end? Because it's so funny that IMF said increase interest rate 2 days ago, and out of all the noises we've been hearing all this while, it was when IMF said it, the Bank of England had to act. Was that the case, or they read the tea leaves on, labor and some other parameters in the economy? And also, the effect of that on the British economy, I'd like to know. What is happening? And is this a strong indication that Fed too will go the same way? And the ECB too will go the same way in the new year? Is this an indication? Because now what they're doing is they're already cutting back those taper in the ECB. And quickly, what is happening in Turkey? Oh my God. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, with 20% inflation, has gone ahead to increase wages, which we know is inflationary, and is still cutting interest rates.
Turkey, first of all, it's on a different planet. I mean, I said it in the earlier part of the report. I don't understand what's going on there. What he thinks he's going to do is to bring down, to make Turkey's exports cheaper and cheaper, and therefore raise the economy that way. I think, apart from North Korea, we don't really know what's going on in North Korea, but apart from that, he appears to be the only person who thinks that combating high inflation is worth reducing interest rates for. I don't know. It's on a different planet. We'll see. He's raised the minimum wage. As you quite rightly say, your monetary instincts are just like mine and just like the rest of the world, quite honestly. It's not something you'd normally do. As far as the Bank of England and the IMF is concerned, I don't think the Bank of England cared one way what the IMF thinks or another, to be honest. I certainly don't think they do. I don't see what it's got to do with anything. And I certainly, as a voter, want my central bank to be thinking of itself, not about what the IMF says, because the IMF, remember, it's just an end-of-term report as far as they're concerned. The real question here is, what will this interest rate rise do? It may affect price rises domestically, but really, as far as I know, and I don't know whether you share this view, but I think it's to do with global supply pressures, quite honestly, and I don't see what an interest rate rise of that sort of slight touch on the tiller is actually going to make to anything at all. However, will it cause the Fed? No. Will it cause the ECB? No. Both those think, whatever you think about them, they think for themselves. The Fed's been quite specific about its taper of asset purchases, and the ECB has been quite specific about it too. As far as interest rate rises are concerned, I wouldn't be drawn on that until next year, because we do not know, and here's the big variable, we do not know about Omicron yet, and that is the absolute vital thing. It's shutting down our economy here. It will spread around the world like wildfires, no question about that. So basically, it's like everything else. Rishi Sunak has come back to talk to the hospitality industry. Whether they'll get any joy out of him or any Christmas cheer out of him remains to be seen. If I were him, I'd be saying, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to wait until we find out, because the situation changes, Omicron situation changes every single day, and is continuing to do so.
Well, very quickly, quite a lot to talk about with regard to the interest rate being raised by the Bank of England after the meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee, voting 8-1, raising that interest rate from 0.1 to 2.5%. And Andrew Bailey saying that we're likely to have more interest rate, rises. I think that what is more important in this regard is what will be the implications and which sectors are most likely to be impacted one way or the other. I don't know what you think in that regard. As for Rishi Sunak rushing back to hold meetings with the players in the hospitality industry, well, that looks like some kind of vote fast, because about 2 weeks ago, he was still saying that their demand that there should be a return to the reintroduction, the restoration of the follow scheme was not something government was thinking about. Are we likely to see that? Because he just talked loosely about government providing some billions. Now, UK-Australia deal. Yes, the UK is looking towards the Trans-Pacific Partnership region. They call it a free trade agreement. otherwise, some other people call it preferential trade agreement, which is the more technical term. But who is at an advantage here? UK farmers are saying that this will not favor them, that the UK could become a dumping ground. The government is saying that, well, Britain will make more revenue from this, will have a lot of advantages, and that this should be seen as the first in terms of this kind of agreements, which are not necessarily derivatives of Brexit. But what do you think? How will it work? Will this agreement, partnership, will it deliver the promises that have been made? And finally, U.S.-China. Well, we've seen the U.S. Congress passing the bill against forced labor in Xinjiang and among the Uyghurs in China. And, Congress voted almost unanimously. Would there ever be an end to China-U.S. trade war? And what is China saying? Because I haven't seen the response from China. The usual response is to say there will be retaliatory measures. But in this particular instance, what kind of retaliatory measures can China come up with the Commerce Department, the Labor Department, virtually every department in the U.S. targeting China?
Which one would you like me to answer first? Let's do China first.
Okay.
China and the United States. I don't see any end to this until they actually sit down physically at a table and start to hammer out what they want to do. As far as I see it at the moment, there's a lot of geopolitical shuffling going on right now, and that will in those crunch points, the trade will be a part of that particular war. I don't know where China is going at the moment. I do know that President Xi wants to be there by 2049. 2049 is the crucial 100 years of communism since 1949. 2049 is the crucial date. Maybe things will get better then. You and I will be beyond worrying about it, I would imagine, by then. I suspect that this will actually continue. The only language that most big countries understand is tough language, and certainly this clampdown, this blacklisting of various China entities is certainly talking quite tough. As far as the UK is concerned, the Chancellor is rushing back. He doesn't want to be seen to be missing in action. Is there going to be any Christmas cheer for him to the hospitality industry? I doubt it. I don't think that furlough is on the table at all. Personally, I think that what he'll probably do is to say, as I said, I hear you, but I'm going to give it a bit more time because we just do not know which way this pandemic is actually going to do. Is it going to be like the flu? Is it something that you have to contain and we're going to get it every year? Or is it going to be much more serious than that? All we know is, apparently, it's spreading very, very quickly indeed. Now, it's pretty obvious what happens to hospitality when that happens. Do I want to go out and catch it? No, I do not. Thank you very much. So I suspect that he will say, yes, I hear what you're saying. I'll see what I can do. And then they will go away extremely cross. As far as finally the UK and Australia trade deal is concerned, I think it's very important actually. It's the first big thing to be in. This hasn't rolled over from pre-Brexit. This is post-Brexit trade. Yes, there are worries from UK farmers. There are always worries from UK farmers. The Australian government and the UK government defend their case by saying that the majority of the meat and sheep meat exports from Australia go to Asia Pacific rather than the UK. We'll wait to see. There will always be somebody unhappy as far as a trade deal is concerned. This one will be no exception. However, if it means that it involves the UK in this all-important Asia Pacific trade pact, then it's a good deal.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Olsen.
Thank you, Michael. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rotus Odiri give us updates on Africa business. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rotus Odiri is here to give us Africa business update. Over to you, Rotus. Good morning.
Oji. Welcome back, Doctor. Good morning to you. Good morning, Rufai. Yeah, so we begin with the World Bank and a number of support initiatives coming from the World Bank. First off, it's a $700 million climate resilient fund that they're doling out to Nigeria. And it's from the International Development Association, the IDA, which was set up back in the 60s to support low-income countries. And this $700 million credit from the International Development Association is for Nigeria's Agro-Climatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscape Project. And it is supposed to assist Nigeria in land maintenance. The World Bank pointed out that productivity for crops in Nigeria has been declining, and it's because of, they've mentioned violence, they mentioned outdated agricultural maintenance practices, the lack of technology, and they also mentioned droughts. Drought has been affecting the northern region of the country in particular, and water shortages. And they mentioned that, and this is something very interesting, we talk about being the giant of Africa and our large population. When you have dwindling resources, especially when it comes to food security, the population growth works against you, because the resources that you are trying to prop up in order to be provisional for the population is dwindling, because the population that you're trying to provide for continues to grow. So it's a race against time, essentially. So again, this is mainly about land sustainability and being able to improve yields. Climate change is, of course, a big issue here because of the impact that it's having on arable land that is meant to be able to grow these crops to feed the populations that are in their area. So that's what the World Bank. Still more World Bank news. Shabam Chuduri, who is the World Bank country director for Nigeria, apparently he spoke to the Nigeria Governors Forum and informed them that the World Bank is prepping an $800 million cash transfer facility. This comes, I think, at official exchange rates, this is about 330 billion naira. And so the Nigerian Governors Forum put out in their communique after their latest meeting, put out a note in there that they had spoken to Shabam Chuduri, and this facility is supposed to assist in conditional cash transfers. According to the federal government and its existing household upliftment conditional cash transfer program, over the last 2 months, the federal government has doled out about 58 billion naira and signed up, I think, about 1.9 million families or so for conditional cash transfer. So this is, supposed to continue to aid that initiative. And look, as much as we talk about, boosting incomes for families, the social safety net is still very, very important, and it looks like the World Bank recognizes that and is going to be providing this facility, which is going to be a really, really big help for families that are facing a lot of struggle. We move to Tech Ventures platform is a accelerator program, a venture capital firm in Nigeria that has been funding a lot of popular fintechs like Kudi, Thrive Agri, Paystack. They've completed their first close on a 40 million Pan-Africa fund. And what that means is they are trying to put together this Pan-African fund to fund tech startups across Africa. And they've concluded their first close. Interestingly enough, the Nigerian Sovereign Investment Authority actually participated in this first close. So it's very good to see that the government, to some respects, is interested and has been alerted towards the potential of technology startups in the African continent and is assisting in investing. So this money is going to go towards, I believe they're focusing on Egypt and a number of South Africa, Kenya, also Nigeria as well, to continue to fund more startups. So when you think about a Paystack, or you think about any other fintech firms, these funds are very, very vital from different accelerator programs in order to get them going. The gentleman to the right is Kola Aina. He's the founder of Ventures Platform. Hopefully, we're talking to him later on the Global Business Report. Finally, Zambia. Zambia has eliminated fuel subsidies. Zambia has had fuel subsidies running since December of 2019. They, of course, ran into some finance issues, mounting debt, fiscal revenue issues. And so they've, earlier this month, or I believe it was last month, Zambia closed a $1.4 billion credit facility with the International Monetary and the IMF, and so monetary financial. The IMF, can't believe I can't remember what IMF stands for. So they're essentially going to, as a result of International Monetary Fund, as a result of the IMF fund, they will have to essentially remove subsidies and commit to some other austerity measures in order to secure that money. So you know who's going to learn from this lesson.
Yeah, I mean, Nigeria is going to learn from it. Let me just pick it up from there. And Hichilema, since he got in, was very frontal about the fact that Zambia is going to take a haircut economically, and the fact that they had to bolster with the IMF fund, a sizable amount of money coming into the Zambia economy, reeling off those Chinese debts. They need to stabilize things. Albeit the argument for them in Zambia was the fact that Edgar Lungu was taking out those loans for infrastructure. Yeah. But it goes back to the conversation about social mobility and the building of infrastructure. Yeah, infrastructure growth will spur social mobility, but it's a long-run thing.
Very long.
It's not a short-term thing like in economics that we say the short-term and the long-term. It's a very long-term thing over 20, 25 years. But in the short term, what spurs social mobility and puts more money in the people's pockets are those social policies. And I think in thinking, there must also be, yes, infrastructure building for long term, but also, setting aside those social mobility policies for the short term, because you need somebody to be full, his stomach to be full and stay alive for him to now think of the future when the rail starts to bring money back and starts to improve the economy. And it goes back to the conversation about droughts and the World Bank putting some money in to be able to grow crops and increase crop. It goes back to the theory of Thomas Malthus, the population czar, the population expert, the economist that talked about the population theory. And Malthus will always say there's a direct correlation between population of a society and food. Food supply and population, inversely relational. But Malthus goes further in that theory to talk about preventative checks. So what are the things that check population growth? Crisis, economy, earthquake, and things like that. So he always talks about the need to check population. But in this regard, I think what we should do as a preventative check is to show up the growth potential, increase yield per capita, try as much as possible to try irrigation out on the land, give more subvention to farmers to produce more food, so that as the population is growing, we can produce food that can meet that population growth and we can have a balance.
You mentioned Thomas Malthus and population check. When Avengers came out and Thanos said there were too many people and he needed to snap half of the population to preserve resources, Malthus, economists were talking about the movie and they brought up Thomas Malthus. Yeah, good stuff.
Well, Rotus, yes, it's good you brought this story from Zambia, where petrol, diesel, and the cost of liquefied natural gas, all of these prices have gone up. Right. But, okay, lessons for Nigeria to learn. But I think it's not enough to just announce that Zambia, has removed petroleum subsidies following the directives of the IMF. So what is the auto suggestion? That Nigeria should do the same thing. I think the big lesson is in terms of, impact.
Yes.
And what is the impact in Zambia? The Energy Regulation Board and the government, they are saying that they're going to make sure that they put a cap of 2.6% in terms of, knock-on effects with regard to wholesale prices. Now, his government, how is the Zambian government going to do that? You beat people, you say they should not cry. What kind of policies are they going to come up with? And then what is the reaction of the people? Of course, the position of the people of Zambia is different, because what this means, they call it cost-reflective pricing. What will happen is that it's greater hardship imposed on the people. So we have the news, but we also must look at the implications, and why that political economic decision would seem to have been taken, so that the Nigerian authorities don't say, oh, they've done it in Zambia, so why is the Nigerian Labour Congress complaining? Right. The systems are different, in terms of the environment, and more rigorous thinking should go into it. Now, as for the 800 million facility that has now been promised or made available to Nigeria by the World Bank, yes, the World Bank has been supporting a number of projects and initiatives, not just in Nigeria, but in many low and middle income countries, particularly within the context of COVID-19. We've seen a ramping up of efforts by the Bretton Woods institutions. But the point to make is that this conditional cash transfer issue is a very controversial issue in Nigeria, particularly with regard to how it is managed, who benefits, and the integrity of the register. I had a conversation on another program, This Day Live, on Sunday, with Ayo Akpera, Ayo Akpera is the national coordinator of the social safety net program in Nigeria. And he was very confident, about the structures they have put in place and all of that. But this particular facility coming from the World Bank is not going to be managed by the federal government alone or the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The states are involved. Yeah. And that was why at the end of their meeting yesterday, their teleconference, 36th teleconference yesterday, they tried to provide details. So each of these states, they're going to set up steering committees to liaise with Ayo Akpera's office. The big issue in Nigeria has always been about accountability. My suspicion is that if at the federal level, Nigerians raised issues about social register and all of that, we could have other challenges at the state levels. And the governors, they should go beyond the excitement that they showed yesterday and know that the big elephant in the room is the integrity of the process, the accountability of the process, and that this facility must not become an instrument for political patronage now that we are heading towards, towards the 2023 general election. The federal government may say, we are running a strong CCT program, but the governors must give us the assurance that their steering committee is not going to use this to prosecute the 2023 general elections. Of course, the World Bank has its own mechanisms, but Nigeria has its own local peculiarities.
Very true. Well, if we're going by this day, the $700 million from the World Bank, it's from its the International Development Association for the agro-climate resilience, and it's really to tackle the landscape management practices there. They have a lot of challenges in the landscape in the north, especially like the water and the drought and all of that. So I think it's a good one as well.
Indeed, the World Bank assisting us, so very much needed and appreciated.
Thank you very much, Refutes.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you, Refutes. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.